Why millions of Americans are buying 20-year-old cars. The pre-screen loophole. One driver requested his file, not his credit file, his driving file. 258 pages came back, 640 separate trips logged with start times, distances, hard braking, fast acceleration. He never signed up for a single line of it. His car sent it. Another owner watched her premium climb by 80% and could not get a straight answer why. 603 entries of her own driving had already been handed to a data broker. That is the part nobody brings up on the test drive, and it is one of the reasons millions of Americans are quietly moving into cars built 20 years ago. So here's the whole thing, what the pre-screen loophole actually buys you, what it takes away, and the short list of vehicles where it works. If you keep your cars a decade or more, subscribe. Everything I do here is built for people who intend to still own the thing in 2040, and there is not much of that on this platform. Start with the money, because the money is what started this. In July of 2026, the average new vehicle sold in this country for $49,855, according to Kelley Blue Book. That number has stayed just under $50,000 all year. Fine. Most of you were never buying new anyway. Here is the part that changed everything. iSeeCars looked at more than 11 million used car sales and found that the average 3-year-old used car now goes for $32,651. In 2019, that same car was $23,600. $9,000 added in 7 years. And the supply underneath $20,000 did not shrink. It collapsed. In 2019, nearly half of all 3-year-old used cars were priced under $20,000. Today, it is about 1 in 9. So the lightly used car that used to be the smart move, the one everybody's brother-in-law recommends, quietly walked out of the room. Edmunds put it plainly, the same $10,000 to $15,000 budget now buys a car 4 years older with roughly 40,000 more miles on it than it did in 2019. That is not a preference, that is arithmetic. When the affordable end of the market empties out, buyers do not stop needing cars. They go older, and the country has already gone older. S&P Global Mobility tracks this every year, and the average vehicle on American roads is now 12.8 years old, a record, the 8th straight annual increase. Passenger cars specifically average 14 and a half years. There are 289 million vehicles in operation out there, and they are leaving the road slower than new ones arrive. So the trend in the title is not a fringe movement, it is the fleet. And when people land in that older window, they start noticing things about it that have nothing to do with price. Let me explain what that window actually is, because the phrase pre-screen gets used loosely, and it is not really about the screen. Forget the display for a second. The display is the visible part. The part that matters is the modem sitting behind it. Somewhere around the middle of the last decade, a cellular radio became standard equipment. Not optional, standard. By 2024, roughly 93% of new vehicles sold in North America left the factory with an embedded connection to the manufacturer. Worldwide, it was 83% last year and climbing. That radio is what makes the modern car modern. It is how the navigation updates, how the app unlocks the doors, how the over-the-air update arrives, how the emergency call goes out, and how the driving data leaves the vehicle. All of it runs through one piece of hardware most owners could not point to. A car built in 2005 does not have one. Not disabled, not opted out of, not present. There is no radio in the dash to report anything, nothing to subscribe to, nothing a manufacturer can switch off from a server in another state. That is the entire loophole, and it is not a clever trick anybody found. It is just an absence. Now, second half of that mechanism, and this is the part people miss. On a modern car, the screen is not a radio. It is the control surface, climate, defroster, mirrors, drive modes, sometimes the glove box. When the screen dies, you have not lost your music, you have lost your defroster on a January morning. That one is free, and here is what it points at. Every one of these systems creates a moment where somebody at a counter explains a repair you have no way to evaluate. That gap is where the money leaves. The 500,000 Miles Car Care Bible has a section called The Mechanic Decoder. 30 common upsells, what they actually mean, and the sentence to say back. It also has a printable 20-point used car inspection for exactly this kind of shopping. $27 less than most shops charge to put your car on a lift. Code on screen, link below, or carcarebible.com. Before I get to what that absence buys you, one thing has to be established, because otherwise this all sounds like a man complaining about change. The screens are not just disliked, they are the measured failure point. J.D. Power runs a dependability study on 3-year-old vehicles every year. The 2026 edition found 204 problems per 100 vehicles, the worst result since they redesigned the study in 2022, and the third straight year dependability went backward. Of 9 problem categories, infotainment was the worst by a wide margin at 56.7 problems per 100 vehicles. Second place was the exterior at 27.5, not close. Their initial quality study on brand new cars at 90 days found the same thing from the other end. Quality improved in 9 of 10 categories this year. Infotainment was the one that got worse. And here's the number that ought to end the argument. Among owners who reported a distraction problem, 46% traced it to the infotainment system or the touchscreen. Only 27% of owners said an over-the-air update actually improved their vehicle. Even the safety bodies have folded. Starting in January of 2026, the European crash testing body Euro NCAP requires physical controls for turn signals, hazards, horn, wipers, and the emergency call before a vehicle can earn a top rating. Buttons, that is a regulator formally conceding that the last 15 years of dashboard design made cars worse to operate. If you had a suspicion about this and assumed it was just you, it was not just you, and now it is in writing. So, what does the absence of that radio actually get you? 4 things, and only one of them is the one everybody talks about. First, the data. In January of 2026, the Federal Trade Commission finalized an order against General Motors and OnStar over exactly what I opened with. Regulators found the company collected precise location and driving behavior from more than 1 million vehicles, in some cases recording every few seconds, and sold it to brokers who packaged it for insurers. The order bans that sharing for 5 years and requires express consent for 20. In May of this year, California announced a $12.75 million settlement over the same conduct and said the company took in about $20 million nationwide from those sales between 2020 and 2024. $20 million split across the number of people affected. That is the price your driving record fetched. Somebody made a business decision that it was worth more to them than it was to you, and until a reporter noticed, they were right. Second, the subscriptions. Toyota charges around $8 a month for remote start. Once your trial runs out, Mazda charges $10. Ford asks $495 a year for hands-free highway driving, or $2,495 to own it outright. One analyst ran the obvious math. A single $20 a month feature costs about $3,000 over the life of the vehicle. Industry-wide connected service revenue is projected to go from roughly $6 billion in 2024 to $15 billion by 2030. The hardware is already in the car. The wiring is already in the car. You already paid for both. What you are renting is permission, and permission expires. When the carrier shut down the old third-generation cell networks in 2022, every vehicle built with a modem for that network went dark. Remote start, remote unlock, automatic crash notification gone overnight on cars only a few years old. Some manufacturers offered a hardware upgrade. Several did not, because retrofitting a newer modem meant rewiring and reprogramming they had no obligation to pay for. It also does not require a carrier. In 2025, ACURA notified owners that connected services would be switched off entirely, and that notice reached vehicles as new as the 2022 model year. Cars whose modems worked perfectly well. Sit with that for a second. The engine in a 2005 Camry will outlive the phone service in a 2022 anything. The mechanical parts of a car are measured in decades. The electronic parts are measured in support windows, and somebody else owns the calendar. Third, the repair bill, and this is the one that actually hits a fixed budget. OAAA priced out what driver assistance hardware does to an ordinary job. Replacing the components behind the windshield and recalibrating the camera averaged $360, which was a quarter of the total windshield estimate of about $1,440. A plain windshield on a car without any of that runs $250 to $800. With the camera and the calibration, $600 to $1,500. Same crack, same glass. The difference is the sensor looking through it. And when the screen itself fails, shops report dealer quotes between $1,500 and $3,000 because the unit is sealed and the only approved repair is replacing the whole assembly. Fourth, and quietly, the largest depreciation. AAA's most recent driving cost study puts the total cost of owning and operating a new vehicle at $11,577 a year. Depreciation alone is $4,334 of that every year. Whether you drive it or not, a $9,000 vehicle cannot do that to you. There is no room left underneath it. That is the whole appeal, and it is not glamorous, and it is the single most reliable money argument on this list. Put the numbers down for a second. I have been around these machines a long time, and I will tell you what genuinely surprised me going through this research. It was not any single figure. It was how ordinary the whole thing has become. None of this was hidden. It was all disclosed in the terms, in the trial period, in the fine print of a connected services menu that nobody reads at a desk at 7 in the evening after 3 hours of paperwork. If you want the rest of this before you spend the money instead of after, subscribe. The second half of this video is the part the people selling you on old cars leave out, and it is the part that decides whether this idea is smart or reckless, because there is a half of this that the enthusiasts skip, and I am not going to skip it. It is the only part that can actually hurt you. A 20-year-old car is a 20-year-old car. Federal crash researchers ran the numbers on vehicle age and driver injury compared to a driver in a vehicle 3 years old or newer. A driver in a vehicle 4 to 7 years old was 10% more likely to be killed. 8 to 11 years, 19%, 12 to 14, 32, 15 to 17, 50. 18 years and older, 71%. That latter is not an opinion, and it does not care how well the car was maintained. Structure, restraints, and airbag design improved across those decades, and you are choosing the earlier end of it. And then there is the airbag itself, which is the single hardest disqualifier in this entire subject. More than 67 million Takata inflators have been recalled in this country. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has confirmed 28 deaths and at least 400 injuries. The risk rises with age because the chemistry degrades. This is not a theoretical concern about old cars in general. It is a specific, dated, ongoing campaign. In February of 2026, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram issued a do not drive warning covering every remaining unrepaired vehicle in their group, roughly 225,000 of them. BMW has a do not drive warning out on 90,000 cars built between 2000 and 2006. Nissan has one covering certain 2002 to 2006 models. Ford and Mazda issued theirs on more than 457,000 vehicles. The repair is free. The towing is free. In many cases, they will come to the car. So here's the compressed version, and it is worth more than anything else I will say today. Run the vehicle identification number before you run the vehicle, before the test drive, before the handshake, before you fall in love with a color. Type it into the Federal Recall Lookup, which takes about a minute. If it comes back with an open airbag campaign, that car does not get driven to a shop. It gets the free repair scheduled where it sits, or you walk. Do that one thing, and the largest hazard in this whole strategy essentially goes away. Now, the useful part, which ones? Take the badge off the table for a moment, because the question is not whether a given company built good cars 20 years ago. The question is which specific vehicles survived 20 years in a condition worth paying for. That is a much smaller set, and it has to clear 4 bars. The powertrain has to have a proven record at high mileage, not a good reputation. Parts have to still be cheap and everywhere, which means the model sold in volume. The body and frame have to have held up, because rust ends these cars long before engines do, and there can be no open airbag campaign on the specific vehicle in front of you. That filter is brutal, and it lands mostly in one place. I see cars looking at over 170 million vehicles found the industry average chance of reaching 250,000 miles is 4.8%. Toyota averages 17.8, Lexus 12.8, Honda 10.8, ACURA 7.2. Those 4 are the only brands above the industry average. That is not brand loyalty talking. That is registration data. The one I would personally buy is the Lexus LS430, the 2004 through 2006 cars, 4.3 liter V8, 6-speed automatic, and a reputation among people who actually work on them for running past 300,000 miles on the original engine and transmission. It is quiet in a way that new cars in triple the money are not, because it was engineered when quiet was the entire product. 2 things. The air suspension is the weak point, and rear bags are the common failure. If the car sits unevenly, or you hear the compressor working at startup, walk away and find one on standard coil springs. And this is a timing belt engine, so it needs the belt, water pump, tensioner, and idler done together. Repair Pal puts that job between about $1,100 and $1,400. Ask for the receipt. If there is no receipt, that is not a reason to skip the car. It is $1,100 you subtract from what you offer. Verdict on the LS430. Coil springs only, documented belt service, or money off. And if you find one with records and no rust, that is the best riding car anyone one will ever buy for this kind of money. If you need height and four-wheel drive instead, the fourth generation 4Runner 2003 through 2009 with the 4-liter V6. The economics on these are almost funny. That truck stickered at $30,475 new in 2006. Kelley Blue Book's fair purchase price today sits around $9,000, and Carfax puts the average asking price at about $11,700, with listings running from $8,000 up to $17,000. 20 years, and it gave back 2/3 of its price. That is it, but the frame is the whole story. These rusted badly in salt states, and there is class action litigation over it. Get underneath it, not a glance from the driver's seat, underneath it with a light, tap the rails and the rear cross member with a screwdriver handle. Flaking is normal, soft is not. If it is soft, that truck is finished, whatever the interior looks like. Also, 2003 through 2005 had head gasket complaints on the V6, and the lower ball joints were early. Verdict: 2006 or later, Southern car, clean frame, and I would not blink at 200,000 miles on one of these if the records are there. Now, if you are sitting there thinking that neither of those is really what you want, that you do not need a luxury sedan and you do not need a truck, you want the boring one that just goes and nobody looks at twice, this next one is for you. It is also the one I would bet on outlasting both. The quiet third option is the Toyota Camry and the Avalon from 2005 and 2006. Here's a specific piece of homework that is worth real money. Toyota later ran a warranty enhancement program for excessive oil consumption on the 4-cylinder engine of that family. It covered certain 2007 through 2009 Camrys, certain 2006 through 2008 RAV4s, and several others. The 2005 and 2006 Camry sits mostly outside that affected build window, and the V6 was never part of it at all. So the move is the V6, or a 4-cylinder with an oil consumption history you can verify. On the test drive, check the level yourself before you start it and ask what it uses between changes. An honest owner answers that in one sentence. Verdict: the V6 Avalon is the sleeper of this entire category. Nobody wants them. They were bought by careful people, and they are mechanically the same idea as the Lexus for a fraction of the attention. Then there is the case that needs the most caution, and I will say it flatly: Honda and ACURA from 2001 through 2003. Excellent cars. They also carry the highest risk airbag inflators in the entire recall, with test data showing far higher rupture rates than the rest. Do not treat those as ordinary used cars. Run the number first, get the free repair completed first, and then talk about price. Now, the buying protocol, because the car is only half of it, get a real pre-purchase inspection. Repair Pal puts one between roughly $180 and $320, and on a 20-year-old vehicle, it is the highest return money in the transaction. Ask for a lift inspection, a road test, and a scan. 90 minutes, not 30. And if a seller will not allow one, you already have your answer. For scale, shop labor now runs about $120 to $160 an hour across most of the country, with the national midpoint near $140. So a proper inspection is roughly 2 hours of a technician's time spent looking for the thing that would have cost you $2,000. Then run the insurance math out loud, because this is where people leave money sitting. Full coverage now averages around $2,578 a year nationally. The standard rule is that when collision and comprehensive together cost more than 10% of what the car is worth, they stop making sense. On a $9,000 4Runner, that line is roughly $900 a year. Value Penguin ran that comparison across the life of a vehicle and found that by the 20-year mark, the cost of full coverage reaches about 141% of what the car is actually worth. You are paying more per year than the insurer would ever hand you. Call your agent, ask for the collision and comprehensive portion broken out as its own number, and compare it against what the car would actually pay out. Do not guess at it. Ask for the figure. That single phone call is often $200 or $300 a year, and it takes about 6 minutes. So, the verdict: the pre-screen loophole is real, and it is real on money, privacy, and repair cost. It is not real on crash protection, and anybody selling it to you as an all-around upgrade is selling you something, which means it works best as a deliberate second vehicle. The one that sits in the driveway, does the errands and the hardware store, and the grandchildren's practice runs, holds its value because it has none left to lose and costs nothing to insure. If the primary car in your household is going to carry people long distances, I would put the newer vehicle in that job and the 20-year-old one in this one. If you are going to run one as your only car, then buy the 2006 Lexus LS430 on coil springs, or the 2006 or later 4Runner with a clean southern frame. Pay under $12,000 for either. Put $1,000 aside for immediate deferred maintenance and clear the recall lookup before you hand anybody a dollar. Honest limit on all of that. This only works if you have a shop you trust or hands of your own. A 20-year-old car with no maintenance budget is not a bargain. It is a slow motion problem. I have made the unglamorous choice most of my life, and I have never once stood in a driveway regretting the car I could actually understand. This week, do the 1-minute thing. Take the vehicle identification number off the car sitting outside right now, the one you already own, and run it through the federal recall lookup. Not the one you are shopping for, the one you drive. Most people have never checked, and open recalls are free to fix. Tell me in the comments the year, the model, and what the lookup came back with. That is the most useful thread this channel runs, and people read it. And subscribe if this was worth your time. I do one of these a week. I do the reading before I open my mouth, and I am not selling you a car. If any of this saved you a phone call, the same thinking applied to the whole life of a car is in the 500,000 miles Car Care Bible at carcarebible.com. Link below. Next one is the flip side of this. There is a group of cars from that same era that people buy for exactly the reasons I just described, and they are money pits, and 2 of them have excellent reputations. I will show you which ones and why the reputation is wrong.